Is this it coming up?
Yes.
Okay, well, I won't look for it then.
All right. Well, welcome to the second RTA CAC Selection Committee meeting. And thank you for your participation, December 2nd, 2021. With that, we'll call the meeting to order. So before we do the review of candidates, I do have just a small presentation. I just want to go over some things before we get started. And as a reminder.
Okay, I'm sorry, I don't see Mary. Is she connected?
I saw her earlier. Let me see. Did she? Oh, she was just on.
Yeah, I'm sorry. You might want to pause.
Okay.
Pause. We can't have a meeting without a quorum. So let's pause to confirm a quorum, please.
Okay, please pause. She was logged in. Let me check and see if she's having trouble. I just sent her a message, so let's see if we hear back from her.
Okay, so I see Mayor Tesso logged in. Good morning, Mayor.
Good morning. How are you today?
Doing well. So Paki was just getting us started. So if you're all ready, we have a quorum. Go ahead, Paki.
Okay, good morning, Mayor.
Good morning.
Going over the just the reminders that per the RTA board of the selection criteria is that the selection committee is asked to consider the following criteria when recommending candidates: the geographic representation, diversity of thought, economic representation.
Okay.
Excuse me, my screen got really large and I can't see this. Okay, here we go. Demographic representation.
Paki, I'm sorry, but it looks like we got technical difficulties. Now we don't have Carolyn on.
Is Mary on? Because she
No,
just didn't have a sound.
no. So we're back to 2 members present.
Uh,
So pause again.
Yes, please.
so how many from the selection committee on there?
We need 3 for a quorum, and so far we only have 2 connected. Carolyn was connected, but we lost connection. There we go. She's back on. And Mary's back on as well. Go ahead and proceed.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead, Paki.
All right. So also per the RTA board, there is a suggested composition guideline. This is not a requirement, just a suggestion. And this would be that for the current 35 or for the 35 member RTA CAC, which would include existing and new members, we would have the following breakdown. Again, a suggestion: 19 from the city of Tucson, 7 from Pima County, 2 each from the towns of Marana, Oro Valley, and Sahuarita, and then 1 each from the city of South Tucson, Pasco Yaqui Tribe, and Tohono O'odham Nation. And then in terms of geographic representation, for the suggested composition guideline that I just mentioned, the RTA board's goal is to include participation from the 3 jurisdictions below. So the city of South Tucson, Tohono O'odham Nation, and Pasco Yaqui Tribe. So because we have not received applicants from these groups, the board may want to wish to address this goal separately. And then the selection committee is requested to provide a list of CAC candidates to the best of their abilities to the RTA board for the January 2022 meeting. The RTA board has established the RTA Next planning process as a public-driven process. All of the CAC meetings are open to the public, and the RTA will continue to seek public input along the way, especially when the CAC has an initial draft plan for the region-wide public review and feedback. Participation on the CAC is limited to up to 35 members, and the RTA board appoints the members to the CAC without regard to race, color, age, gender, and ethnicity in compliance with Title VI of the Civil Rights Act. And then for your information, in terms of geographic representation, this is something that you've already seen, but this is the residences of the current CAC members using the 4-mile radius. We just wanted to share that with you to remind you that we do have that information for the current 22 CAC members. And then in terms of business, this is information we received from the current 22 CAC members in the past by their business affiliations. So you can see here business services, construction, education. This is going clockwise: finance, government, and then transportation and distribution. Again, this is just to give you an idea where the current members lie. And then you've also this bar chart. This is what we refer to as the diversity of thought. These are the focus areas that the current 22 CAC members had selected to focus on. And also, these are travel patterns that we got from the census data that shows kind of the current split mode by trip, by travel in 2019, and then the target mode split types. Just to give you some information, all this will be also distributed to you.
I'm sorry, what time frame when you say how many, 2019, so this is how many miles people travel per year or by each? What's that middle one? What is that?
Yeah,
Can you
actually, I'm going to ask Josh, do you mind explaining a little bit more detail on this?
Yeah, I'm happy to. So the left two are 2019 census data, and the one on the left is the mode split by trip, and then the one in the middle is mode split by miles traveled. So you're going to have more miles traveled in a car than walking, for instance. So that's why the walk percentage moves from 10% of the trips to 2.7% of the miles traveled.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah,
and
it's
then the
percentage.
and then the one on the right is the modeled projections of the targets that are in the 2045. So our long range plan, what we kind of track towards. So we're seeing a kind of a slight increase from the 18% non-car or non-drive mode type to if you could go back, please, to the from 18 to 20%. So there's a slight
Actually, looks like it's 16.
16, including. I'm sorry. You're correct. Thanks. There I am again. So from 16 to 20. So
Yeah.
there's a slight increase in non-car mode shift.
So does target mode mean what we're trying to do, or based on past, or what's it based on, or what? Because
it's part of, yeah, no, that's a good question. It's part of the long range planning exercise. So what do we anticipate 2045 mode split to look like? And so we don't anticipate a dramatic shift, but we are anticipating a shift. And there's a lot that goes into it, but I mean, generally speaking, that's kind of the broad brushstroke of what that's reflecting there.
So I'm sorry, Josh. So when you say what you anticipate, it sounds like it might be complicated, but is it based on past patterns being the same in the future, or was there a survey done? And this is what people say they're going to do. I mean, it's not that much of a difference, but still, it would be nice to know that what it's based on generally, unless that's too complicated to talk about.
I'm uncertain of the explicit details. I'm sorry. And so I know it's just it's part of the kind of input parameters to long-term modeling. So those are always, kind of an acceptable scenario of we're looking for an increased investment in transit or different facilities. So we would expect an increase in ridership. Those sorts of kind of assumptions and decisions that go into that long-term 2045 modeling.
Okay, so it's not based on the projects that are in that. I mean, I'm asking these because this is the time frame we're looking at to fund. Is it based at all on what projects are in the RMAP for the next 20 years? So the list of projects that were given to us by jurisdictions and the committees?
It's in part, but it's not driven explicitly by that. I mean, it's an acknowledgement that there is with the urban land use development patterns looking to have more concentration, that those overall, all those components to the exercise to look 30 years out is going to increase the non-drive mode shift. Sorry, I don't have a better answer for you.
Yep, that's better than what I couldn't figure out any of it. So thank you.
Thank you, Josh. And then in terms of economic representation, we have data from the American Community Service that shows household income here in Pima County. So that gives you an idea of the information we do have currently.
Oops, I already asked mine.
Pardon me?
I said I already asked mine. I jumped in
Okay.
too quick, but I do have one more. And then I got cut off right at the beginning when Mayor Tesso came on. Was there something, information before the suggested geographic areas at the very beginning?
Oh, no, I went over the criteria that we did last time, just as a reminder.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Okay, well, if there is no more questions, now we're going to go ahead and pull up the database we did last time, and Josh will review and respond to any questions that you may have on the information that we now have on the database. Josh?
All right. So I'm available to address any questions on the content that we received back from the volunteer survey results. You all had an opportunity to review this content last week. And I just kind of have a little bit of a different view with the map component, but the charts and the records are similar to what you all have had access to. And I'm open to responding to any questions that you may have.
So I guess I wanted just to talk through a little bit about the process that we're kind of seem to be headed toward, although it isn't super clear to me yet even, but it seems to me that what we'll be trying to do after each of us submits his 20 top candidates in rank order. Excuse me, you'll, Paki, you guys will compile those and we'll see, you know, where there's overlay between us, as well as kind of what the composite ranking of candidates might be. And perhaps from that, we can get, let's say, the first half of the 13 candidates, I think, that we intend to nominate. And then the remainder seems to me that we can talk about, you know, our own individual preferred candidates and perhaps have some discussion about why we think they should be nominated, and just have kind of a back and forth with individual numbered candidates. That just, I guess this is for Paki and Farhad. Does that sound like the process that we're headed toward?
Yes, sir. That, as you recall.
I'll let Farhad explain.
Yeah, and then I'm sorry, I'll pass it on to Paki in a minute. But yeah, as you recall, our goal was to help kind of start getting a little bit more clarity on how you want to narrow down the group from 91 to a more manageable size. So once we have everybody's feedback, as you described, that would be the process.
Okay. Well, before the meeting started, I just asked if all of the submittals from all 5 of us had come in yet and had been compiled, and I understand they haven't all been received. Now that we have this demographic information, you know, I, for one, would like to kind of revisit that. I've started to do that, but just to confirm that, you know, my 20 are the 20 that I prefer, and that the order is kind of the order that I prefer. Now with a little more information, it seems like it'll be a little more knowledgeable of a compilation. Can I ask how many you have received and how many more we need?
Well, we have not received all 5 responses yet. You know, as you know, the original deadline was the 22nd of November. We received surveys from candidates on November 22nd, but we had asked the committee members to please provide us your top 20 list before that.
Yeah.
So at this time, we do not have all 5 responses yet.
How many do we have? How many do we, how many do we have?
We
have a
have
majority?
we have 3 of the 5.
Are we talking about the list of candidates that we were asked to submit?
Right.
Mr. Mayor, we're referring to the homework assignment, if you will, of please providing us your top 20 based on the information that you had received from the last meeting.
Okay. I have to let you know that, you know, I've had some troubles with some of this information. I'm, I know that, I have a hard time looking at computers now, starting to develop cataracts. And so it causes me a real pain to try and look at this information unless I have something like an Excel spreadsheet, to be able to look at the information and sort through it. And so I did start to look at all the candidates. I mean, yeah, going through information on there, but it's been slow going for me. And time-wise, it really becomes an issue. I have gone through and so I have basically come up with a list per se. I've got a list of persons that have put candidates on there before the committee, but I'm not real certain that I have got the information that I need from them. I mean, I can't see the entire spreadsheet with issues. So I'm going to have to ask, to have a little bit more time on going over this. I may be able to get through it by saying Monday or something like that, but I don't think I can do it in the next couple of days or anything like that.
Mayor, we'll be happy to get you a hard copy as well, if that helps. And again, as you all know, we have ample time. End of January is the deadline for this committee to make a recommendation. So
right.
We'll get you a hard copy, and hopefully that'll be more legible for you.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it, because I think I would have a little better chance, to do things, as we get a little bit more. Coming to the end of the year here is kind of a little bit more busy, to say the least.
Mhm.
And I don't have any staff like at the city, to be able to do all this stuff. So yeah, I'm a one-man band.
Thank you for your feedback, Mayor. We appreciate knowing that. And yeah, and we obviously cannot help you with selection, but if there's some technical issues that we can help with, but it sounds like we can also provide you the spreadsheet, so we can do that.
Sure. I know one of the things that I think I requested at the last meeting was that we look at information regarding the various industries at the 2-digit level. And I think what I saw on the sheet here was that some of the 2 digits have been combined into a variety of, I counted up I went on the to the Census Bureau and looked at the NAICS classifications, and looking at the 2 digits, there's something like 2-digit NAICS, and they were like if I recall right, something around 20, 24, something like that, different 2-digit industries listed. And some of these that I see on here on this thing has been looks like they've been grouped to some extent, or renamed at the very least. I'm not positive about that, but so I think, to me, it's kind of important that we get. I think it's important to be looking at the industrial breakdowns of where it's available. I know there's people that didn't submit sufficient information to allow us to make that determination. So it's I'm caught in between. How do we evaluate something like that when we don't have that information from the candidates?
Mayor, maybe Josh can explain a little bit better how those the clusters for the industries were developed.
Right.
So
Yeah.
Josh, do you want to explain that, please?
Yeah, Mayor Tesla, you're right. The groupings that were provided for the employment or employment business clusters. So they're groups of 2-digit NAICS codes. And that was trying to strike the balance of providing overwhelming amount of information as it relates to every individual employer, as opposed to the general groupings associated with their employer. So as it stands, there's a decent amount of resolution in this, and if we were to expand it or provide that finer resolution, it'll just this pie chart will be even smaller and I can look to focus the employment industry groupings here, but this will just be even smaller slivers essentially. And so
Well, I was going to mention that, that I started looking at all this data. And so I started pulling it out, and I went and basically recategorized all these things based on the 2-digit numbers. And I was able to do it. And I think I did a fairly good job at that. When I was at Pima College, I did a lot of the information that I collected, and as part of my position there was to look at NAICS classifications and to occupational classifications as well. And I know that some of the things, it's kind of like I look at some of the breakups that we had. We had a number of lawyers that are involved in there, and there's a number of accountants, CPA type occupations, I guess, that people put down there. And most of those are when you break it down into the industry categories, I think they fall into the what the heck is it, business services or something like that.
correct.
So I did go through that, and business services. There's a number of things, people in there, but I noticed that there was quite a few lawyers and quite a few CPAs or accountants and things like that. So I was thinking that might be some kind of cutoff, that when we select other individuals, that maybe we don't focus so much on I don't want to say the industries, but the occupations, maybe to some extent, that are within those industries, that so we're not getting always the same groups. Anyway, I think it would be good if we could have a better spread of industry components in there. However we do that, I think that would be one of my goals in terms of looking for a better selection process.
That's something that we can turn around, and maybe we have both the cluster, so you can see that there are 6
Yes.
people that fall within that CPA, that professional business services. Out of the 91, there are six folks that are either attorneys, engineers, or CPAs.
Right.
And then you can also be able to see maybe some of that finer resolution as well.
Right. And that's what the thing that I'm kind of getting at is that, I don't, it's most of these are higher level education levels that are associated with these particular industries or occupations. And I just don't see the spread that I would like to see across the entire spectrum of people that are candidates that we like to.
And that may be, so in our last meeting, you're kind of looking at the kind of the title of the positions for some of the individuals as a way to kind of get at, well, you're in the construction industry, but are you behind the desk or are you in the field, sort of kind of question.
Right.
And I don't even if we were to go to the 2-digit NAICS, we're not going to be able to kind of make that distinction. Another question that we got responses to that may help kind of look at some of that diversity, maybe the household income, just as a kind of a big broad bucket of, well, for that distinction I just made of, those household income ranges, we can kind of in the slideshow, we showed what's the spread, what's representative categories across the county. So what are those percentages? And then we've where we've received answers, we have responses to the household income question, where we do have we have a 3 that are below 25,000 for household income, which is the lower bracket. There's 8 between 25,000 and 49,000 for household income, and then the larger share of the responses coming in that 50,000 to 99,000 range, with 19 of the responses. And then as we go up to 100,000 to 200,000, we had 12
Right.
applicants and 9 that were over 200,000 for their household income. So maybe a combination of looking at that employment industry cluster, we can go and look to fold in the 2-digit NAICS codes. It's going to be really fine. There's going to be a lot of categories there. And so we're trying to find something that was a meaningful aggregate, but so we can look to share that information. But maybe it would be a combination at the end of the day of the employment NAICS and then the household income that can kind of help guide some of those decision-making process.
Right. And I noticed, there was one candidate that I noticed on there who I guess had submitted, his industry is construction. And when I read through some of the other data for this same person on there, the applicant, the person actually mentioned that they had a small business association and that it involved construction materials, which would be something, basically totally different in terms of the, one would be a retail business. And it's kind of like, if this candidate saying that he's a construction person, and here he has a business that's a retail business, so it's not exactly right.
Yeah, there are challenges with the coding of industry sectors and the occupational versus the the industry that they operate within.
That's where I was spending my time, kind of basically getting nowhere in a sense, but I did, like I said, I did the 2-digit classifications, and I think I have a better feel for it, but and I'm not sure that other members of the subcommittee, have that the skill set to break those down, and it would take a long time.
Right.
But I know I look at it, I feel more comfortable by looking at those 2-digit numbers, but I think it's something we'll have to work with, to try and get a little bit better spread. And like I said, that those income levels. One of the bigger questions I have is, how do we handle the applicants that submitted none of this information? That is kind of like, there's really very little to evaluate on, except maybe the first 2 or 3 items that are on on the list, the focal, the focus areas, that kind of thing, which is I don't want to say it's fine because, I know we don't have that information, but I almost feel like, like we have to work at it from two different angles, and or perhaps, evaluate uh, you know, yeah, there was, like I said, we can't, if we can't use the information per se
Yeah.
on the people that did submit it, uh, it causes some issues in how, how do you select, you're not really
Yeah.
selecting the same
Yeah.
space.
You don't have an easy job. And nor do your selection committee members. And I imagine everyone else has kind of struggled with, wanting to have more information, but making an informed decision.
Right.
Are there any suggestions from the rest of the committee on how you all stepped through that process and kind of reconciled the desire for more information, but trying to move forward with the best available list? Are there
Yeah,
any
I would
strategies? Go on.
I would just say that without, all the candidates we bring forward to the board having the demographic information, we aren't going to be able to tell them whether we've succeeded or not, or at least not completely, give them answers to the questions they're asking about, like, did you meet the, diversity of ethnicity, as an example,
Right.
goal that we set. It'll be hard to do that. But on the other hand, I think, should we disqualify them because they didn't answer voluntary survey? It's
Right.
I think
agree with that.
we have to just do the best we can and recognize that if we have too many of the, did not declined to answer, if we have too many of those in our 13 that we bring forward, it's going to be hard for the board to bless that.
Right.
If you don't mind, I wanted to mention one thing, two things actually. Because this was a voluntary survey, candidates were given the choice to not respond, as you know. But I also mentioned that some candidates did miss the deadline, and they did miss the deadline and felt bad about it as well. So just for your information to be aware that some people just didn't get a chance to do it, wanted to, but didn't get a chance to. Other people, chose not to. So there is a variety there.
Yeah, good, because that's a question I had, Paki, but I'm wondering, did we get any more people that sent them in the voluntary information after the deadline that we don't have here?
We closed it on that day, Carolyn. So even if someone tried, I can't remember.
Oh, I see. Right. You had it online.
It was closed. It was taken down. So, once the deadline came, then it was taken down.
Why don't we reopen it for 1 week? And,
I would agree.
And see if we get any more, but that'll also give the other two who haven't been able to complete, within our committee, some time as well. So I don't know, maybe just a little more time. The reason I brought up at the beginning, this seems to be what the process is because it shows me that the next step really is to start comparing our lists. And if we can't create our lists and we can't, therefore combine them and compare them, then it seems like we're not really able to do very much like today.
For my part, can you all hear me okay? Because I was having some sound problems earlier.
Yeah.
Yes.
So for my part, I did not look at things like household income, ethnicity, gender, and so on, because there were so many that did not put that information in. And my feeling is, if we're not going to come across looking like we are using ethnicity to determine who we're hiring, which would be highly inappropriate. I think it's really hard to use these types of groups to distinguish who we should, I said hiring, sorry, who we should select and who we should not select. Because to me, that sets a real bad precedent of saying, well, if you're a 60-year-old white male, don't even bother to apply because we're not even gonna look at you. You know, I think it just sends the wrong message to even be looking at that. And it's good to have that information where we have it. But for my purpose, I don't want to use that information in trying to determine, does this person sound like they would be a good committee person? And if we don't have the demographic makeup or the gender makeup or whatever that the RTA would like us to have, the reality is we can't use those in trying to select who would be a good CAC member.
I would like to, yeah, and I agree with you. I don't, you know, I think one of the things that I was wondering though is we know we have on the we know the makeup, the current makeup of the current CAC members, and several of those, and there's quite a few of them that already have that designation of not having filled in any of that information. And so, you know, that might be another category that we use, you know, I mean, I think it was like 6 or 7 of the 22 or something like that did not supply any information. And so that's almost kind of like you know, obviously they're well represented on the CAC. So my concern would be then is, can we use that the fact that they didn't fill anything out as, and because they are you know well represented already, that maybe we should focus on the ones that did fill that information out without, you know, taking into without actually looking at the or considering the information that's on there in terms of their ethnicity and all that.
You know what I did? I took my 20, which were obviously done without the benefit of the survey information. I took my 20 and the 22 that are already in the CAC. Mm-hmm. And I took just the ones who had responded so that I could see what kind of a composite committee, you know, my selections might produce, just to give an idea of, right, was I satisfied or had I inadvertently picked, you know, 1965-year-old white guys, you know, just right. What had I done without regard to that information, and was I satisfied that list of 20, of which only 14 filled out the survey, right, was I satisfied with that? And I think, you know, as a follow-up, rather than, as Mary suggests, a primary consideration, it will at least tell us if when we're finished, we have a composite that that looks representative or seems acceptable, as opposed to, you know, putting the cart before the horse, I guess. Mm-hmm.
I like that. I like that idea. I think I should do that with my own 20.
Exactly. Yeah. I think that's the kind of thing that I was kind of looking at myself, you know, just trying to see what the composition of those 20 themselves were, you know. Not that I have all 20 yet. I've got maybe like 12 or something that I was considering at this point in time, but it will require a little bit more time on my part, you know, to be able to do that.
Yeah, so it turned out that of the 42, let's say the current 22 plus the 20 in the list, that's 42. I had 30, people who had filled out the survey. And so that's 3/4. So that's not too bad, I guess.
Right.
But I was just gonna suggest that if we do open up the survey again for any of the candidates that want to go ahead and submit who didn't get a chance to or didn't have time or whatever, and let's also do it for the CAC members.
Current ones.
It just so happens I can identify myself in the CAC, and mine says decline to answer. And I would imagine that since it was 3 years ago or whatever, that I probably just missed the deadline. I had no other reason to decline. So it's possible that some of them may also be in the same boat as me.
And so when you're saying, just to make sure about this, you're talking when you're saying when you're saying we want to open it up again, we're just talking about the reevaluation of the members that, or the candidates that did meet the deadline for application.
No, I just meant that for those who, the 91.
Right. Okay.
Not certainly to open it back up for more applications, only for more people to complete the survey who may not have had time.
And is there a diplomatic way to, as we do this, in the narrative announcing that we're doing this, saying that we're doing this in order to allow those who did not have perhaps enough time to completely fill out the survey, because part of our selection process needs to include those areas that will allow us to make sure we have a diverse group. In other words, without saying too much, but just saying it now so they can read between the lines.
Oh, well, let me ask Paki, I think Tom had made that suggestion and I think we all agree. Is that, and then Tom, you just said, if we open it up, Paki, is that a yes on it? Or do we need any further, like a vote or anything about opening it up for another week? Is that okay to just do it?
I don't think we need a vote. And Farhad, I just want to make sure that that we're following this process correctly, that we can open it for another week.
Yeah, that's completely doable. And like Tom said, we can invite the current members to also reconsider. Last time they filled out the survey was 3 years ago, so we can ask them to also do the same. Yeah, the only really challenge that you're going to start facing is that we're getting into the holidays, and I think we're scheduling at least one more meeting of this group. So if that's the case, I would suggest that we wait until we have all that information back before we schedule another meeting of this group. So hopefully at least you have the information, and so that would be my recommendation to, if you're going to do that, let's schedule this meeting of this group for potentially later in December.
Okay, that's great. And I there's kind of want to take a little bit of a divergent, but on the same topic. Just a little peek into what I was looking at. As I said in the last meeting, I think we're fairly represented in terms of geographic representation. So I kind of ignored that. I looked at the things that we're short on, which was, again, without having everybody's information, younger people that, looking 20 years ahead for this plan, what they have expressed interest in. So if we had that information, I'm interested in having more people of color and more women and more younger people. And sometimes you can kind of guess on that. But the one thing, and I wanted to ask the mayor about this, and it was mentioned at the beginning, and once again, I wish the chairman was here so I could ask him too, but the one thing that was brought up besides, I mean, I know it's all a guideline as far as geographic, mayor, but we did not get anybody that applied from South Tucson, because we did know the addresses. I mean, we don't know the addresses, but the staff does, or anybody in either the tribal, from either Pasquayaki or from the Tohono O'odham, unless there was at least one that address belied it, but a Native American. But the board, the RTA board, I think they're meeting next week. Would it be helpful, and I want your opinion on this, to look at, you talked about this at your last board meeting, actively recruiting from your own jurisdiction people to apply. I think you talked about maybe the RTA board members appointing somebody. There was some discussion about that, but no real vote or consensus or anything. But
Right.
Mayor, do you think that's important to pursue, actively looking for people to apply in the 3 jurisdictions that were brought up that currently don't have any on our committee? That's my question.
Right. I think it would be important, for one thing, at least for the diversity thing. I mean, to be able to, and I'm not talking about appointing in terms of the having the mayors, the chairs of the tribes, to appoint somebody, that kind of thing. We already discussed that at the previous board meeting. I think both Tony and Mayor Beto were actually agreeing with each other that it shouldn't be an appointment. But I think that it would probably be reasonable to have each jurisdiction have perhaps an ability to recruit applicants at this. I'm not sure about that at this point in time. It seems like things are already in place, and but I would be interested in doing that. But one thing I would be included in that is to check with the jurisdictions, the 3 jurisdictions, and find out if we received the notice, from PAG saying that the nomination or the application period was open or not. I haven't really had a chance to ask our city manager if she received a notice that the process was going. And I know that for me personally, I dropped the ball. I didn't go out there and ask about bring it up in council or anything like that, whether that the application period is open. So that is truly my fault. I think I should have taken the message back directly, but it also should have been picked up by other people. So I want to make sure that we have had notice. Obviously, like I said, I dropped the ball, but I need to check with with the city manager and find out if she received an email. That's always kind of critical, I think, to make sure that we are going through and receiving that the right person are receiving the email.
Okay, well, I guess my follow-up question, and maybe that's a no, is that if we wanted as a committee to make any recommendation to the board, and really there was a lot of discussion at the board about the CAC last time. So I just want to make sure that we're doing our due diligence to follow the direction of what the board asked us to do. And so, I mean, maybe you'll talk about it the next meeting, but it doesn't sound like you might want some kind of a motion to be sent to the board, or we can just report our progress. Paki, I don't know if we're going to be doing that, but report our progress to the board at their next board meeting, that this is what we have and this is what we're doing, and we didn't get any applications for them, just to let them know, and maybe you guys, I should say, take it from there.
Yeah, I forgot to look at is this on the agenda? Is a CAC report from the subcommittee on the regional councils or the RTA board's agenda?
No, Tom, as you recall, the request was to take the next 3 months and come back with a recommendation. So there is no progress at this point. Obviously, they're looking for you all to make a recommendation prior to the January meeting. So all of that, any recommendations you want to make would be included in that meeting.
Well, I guess I would suggest that there be, maybe Farhad, it'd even be in your report. Don't you usually have a executive director report or something like that?
Yeah, so typically items like this have to be very specific, agendized for a conversation. Again, and Mayor Kesso and I obviously coordinate and discuss how we want to approach that. It could be a simple memo, a one-way memo to the board that the committee has been meeting and they are moving forward with a recommendation, hopefully by the due date. And then we've brought this topic up earlier in this meeting as well, that the desire of the board was to have representatives from those 3 jurisdictions. So that's already been expressed. How they want to address that, our recommendation would be that would be up to the board to decide how to address that.
Yeah, I agree. I think just a memo to them saying, we got no applicants from those 3 jurisdictions, and we've decided to reopen the demographic survey for another week. And, that's just basically what the info is. If there's more that individuals want to know about it, they can inquire about those. I guess it would have to be offline, but certainly that will alert the 3 jurisdictions that we're talking about that no one did apply, and if they want to pursue it beyond that, then that's up to the board as a whole.
Yeah, so the board was informed of that at the last meeting, that we didn't have any applications from the 3 jurisdictions.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they had
thanks.
that conversation.
Well,
Okay, great.
Also, I think it's also, Tom, I agree with you, to let them know that if we're going to open up for another week to allow people to finish their application process, that also indicates that our due diligence, that we are trying. We're trying everything possible to try to get the diversity of candidates they're looking for.
Let me make sure I'm clear. We're not opening up applications for new applicants. So that would only be resolved if we open up applications for new applicants to get applications from the 3 jurisdictions. That is not part of our process at this point.
Right.
Right. We're just hoping that people who perhaps have declined to answer or didn't answer, we can get a little more information to get a little more diversity in our
Correct.
Right. Well, but we do already know all the information about their zip codes and all that. So we do know that we didn't get any, but That's probably enough. And I'm sorry, Farhad, I didn't realize or remember that you already reported on that. So it really is up to the board. I was just wondering if we wanted to make any suggestion. There's another issue I've been thinking about. As I've said, I think we're pretty well represented with that exception geographically. And so one of the things I did when I looked at those zip codes was thinking about demographics and geographics is just look at the numbers of people that lived in different zip codes. And I just picked a few of them from, the kind of zip codes that were showing up in there, and realized that there are a few zip codes within the city and some kind of that are both city and county, and South Tucson, where there's like twice as many people in the zip code that live there than there are in the towns of Sahuarita or the whole town of Marana or the whole town of Oro Valley. So that made a difference to me too. I mean, there's a lot of people living in smaller areas until you get out to Marana and Sahuarita, which are kind of spread out. But anyway, I just want to throw that out as something that was in my thought process too, as I was looking at that kind of, in my opinion, that kind of counts as far as demographics and geographic, representation. So,
You know what,
for those,
I'd like to add something too, is that, the Census Bureau just released the centers of population for each county, geographic center of population. And based on that, the geographic center for Pima County lies approximately on Tyndall and 14th Street, which is quite a bit further south than some of the areas that we're looking at, and so it even creates a bigger vacancy in terms of where the candidates of the applicants have come and their distribution, so in that sense, I mean, I don't see the candidate pool as necessarily being what I would call maybe randomly distributed within those 4 quadrants that site, the geographic center would produce, on an east, northwest quadrant, northeast quadrant, southeast, and southwest. There's some pretty empty quadrants in there.
yep. Well, since we can't go over the lists, I'll throw one more thing out that's really been driving my selection, is that climate change is a crisis right now. And so I really looked at some of the diversity of thought and think, we can't keep going like this. So the sustainability part of our vision and our guiding principles. And I mean, it's pretty, I mean, climate change should be driving the next 20-year plan. And that's all I'll say about it, because we can't keep living like this, or we're not going to be living very long.
Right. And I agree with you.
Okay, well, if there are no other questions, again, we'll go ahead and try to coordinate another meeting date, potentially for later in December. So hopefully by that time, as we discussed, we'll get more responses and be able to have a complete list of everybody's 20 ranks as well. So that would be very productive. Any other questions? If not, I think we're probably good to adjourn.
I'm sorry, what can you clarify? So are we canceling our next meeting, or just thinking about?
Yeah, we had a tentative date in mind, but given the fact that we're going to try to seek out additional responses and allow all the committee members to complete their list and send their list back, I don't think we'll have enough information by that tentative date. So we'll coordinate and identify another date, hopefully for later in December.
Well, I think it was confirmed for the 14th, but we will take that off, right? Pocky, was that?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I had asked you to hold the 14th.
Okay.
Possible second date, but now after this discussion, it sounds like you'll need a little bit more time, so.
Okay,
So we'll coordinate another date. Again, with the holidays coming up, it might be challenging, but we appreciate your contribution, and hopefully we'll be able to find a spot that everybody can attend.
perfect.
Sounds good.
Yeah,
Thank
good.
you.
Thank
Thanks,
you,
James.
everybody.